Well, that was pretty fun. The Baltimore Ravens absolutely decimate the Denver Broncos. 41 points put up by this Baltimore Ravens team. And hey, the defense bounced back too. We'll talk about everything that happened in the game on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into an instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, and we are, of course, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day, free and available for you. Of course, all podcasting platforms. We got you covered in video form on YouTube where you can like and subscribe, or in audio form. We got you covered. You can follow along, subscribe over there 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. However you decide to watch or listen to the show. Today's post-game edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Baltimore Ravens needed a bounce back, and this is about the biggest bounce back you could probably have imagined for this team. The Ravens playing against the top-rated defense in the NFL in multiple different categories in the Denver Broncos, and they put up 41 points. The defense bounces back in a big way. Lamar just breaks away from the MVP field. And, hey, we got some Ravens trade talk to get into as well, because we know that is coming up as well. So appreciate everybody for being here. We got a lot to dive into today. Let's start with the game, though. Of course, I think we have to, right? We'll get to the trade talk in the final part of the show. But, hey, you know what, Michael? Ravens D, they definitely slapped him up in this game, 100%. We're going to be diving into that. But let's start with Lamar. All right? Let's start with Lamar first, because I was just blown away by Lamar's performance. There are multiple different stats that we can dive into, but let's just start off with the general box score ones. Lamar in this game, 16 of 19 for 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a perfect passer rating, 158.3. The NFL record for perfect passer rating games is 4. Ben Roethlisberger has that. Well, now Lamar Jackson joins him with 4. He was very close to getting one against the Bucs. I believe he was 158.1, so just 0.02 off, or 0.2 off from getting that. But Lamar was just dialed in today. Lamar was dialed in. The ball placement on some of these throws was absolutely exquisite. That one to Justice Hill where he just plopped that thing right in the breadbasket for Justice. Lamar's a guy who we know when he can get going and he can either be in the pocket or extend plays, he's absolutely lethal. And we heard Sean Payton talk at halftime, right, as the Broncos were going into the halftime locker room. And he said, you know, the Broncos have to keep Lamar in the pocket. And that's how dangerous Lamar Jackson is, because in the pocket, he will dice you up. But if you let him get out and escape and make things happen, I mean, that just creates a whole different amount of problems. And this was, I mean, there have been games like this before, but this was one of the prime times it was on display, is Lamar Jackson's ability to get out, scramble, escape, and make things happen. To me, this was a great example of how Lamar Jackson can draw penalties on the defense. We saw multiple times there was defensive holding before the pass was thrown, and even on plays where Lamar couldn't find anything. He's sitting back in the pocket, and then if he can't find anything or a guy gets to him, he steps up, he works outside, and then he's sitting there looking and escaping for 5, 6, 7 seconds. That is extremely taxing on any defensive backfield. And the fact that Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, we'll talk about the other guys too, but the fact that this Ravens offense went out there and hung 41 points on this Denver defense, which, by the way, we talked about this throughout the whole week on Locked On Ravens. That Denver defense, all right, number 1 pass defense entering this game, number 5 rush defense entering this game. And Baltimore just made them look like they were a bottom 5 defense in the league. Baltimore averaged 7.3 yards per play in this game. They went 3 of 8 on third down, which, you could say that could be a little better. But the fact of the matter is they only got into 8 third down situations because they were so dominant on first and second down. And even in these different situations where Derrick Henry, like obviously he got 100 yards in this game, but Denver, especially on earlier downs, was kind of able to quote unquote stop Derrick Henry, 23 for 106, but he had 2 touchdowns. And late in that game, we saw him break free. And that's what Derrick Henry is for. Not only the fact that he's such a dominant player, but the fact that as the game wears on, I don't know about anybody else, but me personally, you get in that fourth quarter and you have me out there on defense, I'm huffing and puffing, and I don't want to go and see Derrick Henry in front of me. I'm kind of like saying, are we going to make a business decision here? And we saw Denver defenders make business decision on business decision. Spirit bomb. Henry averaged 5 yards a carry. He's washed. Hang him up. Remember those conversations, though? In all seriousness, remember those conversations about Derrick Henry when he signed with the Ravens about, he hit that 30. He's 30. How is he going to fit in? Is his body going to break down? Man, I know a lot of teams are sitting there, especially maybe quote unquote the Dallas Cowboys, looking at Derrick Henry and saying, man, definitely a mistake to not bring him in. Zay Flowers absolutely dominant in this game. He dominated the receiving share in this one. 5 for 127, averaged 25.4 yards per catch. Just unbelievable from Zay Flowers. Obviously, with those 2 touchdowns, had that one where he juked out a defender, ran up the sideline. Rashad Bateman comes back and takes out like 3 dudes with 1 block. That was like the highlight of all highlight plays. And there were plenty of them in this game. But man, I was pumped. To see Zay go out there and do that to this defense. Because look, you got Pat Surtain on that side, Riley Moss on that side. This is a good Denver defense. Coming into this game, I believe Denver's defense was giving up negative 0.14 EPA. And last I saw with the graphic, the Ravens were averaging either 0.36 or 0.51. This offensive unit is one of the best we've seen in NFL history. And we're saying that 5 years after seeing just a buzzsaw of an offense in 2019. And we were sitting there and we were saying, man, well, when are these offensive records going to be broken? When are we going to see another offense like this? And here we are talking about Lamar Jackson slicing and dicing teams up as a passer better than we've ever seen him. Derrick Henry coming in and absolutely laying the boom on guys, getting downhill, making an impact. It's just pick your poison. Then you work the play action game off of that. You work what Zay's been doing. Mark Andrews with a couple of timely receptions, or I think, a couple timely receptions for him. Justice Hill's being utilized a ton. And they're working in Deontay Johnson. He didn't really do a ton in this game. I don't even know how many snaps he played. It wasn't a lot. And then you have Keaton Mitchell coming back at some point. This team is going to be extremely dangerous. Now, we'll get into the defensive side of the ball soon. We'll talk about those guys because I think definitely some positives, but some things they still have to shore up on. But this offense is not even a question to me. And my final score prediction was a little low in this game. I had Baltimore winning a close one. Obviously, I was very wrong on that, and I'm very happy I was. But hey, I still had the Ravens winning, by the way. Did not question them on that win. But now I don't care who you put in front of the Ravens defensively on offense. They're going to dice them. Like, that's what it is, where they might have some struggles here and there. They might struggle to move the ball at times. But more often than not, this offense is not going to actively lose you the game. That's more of the defense, right? That is what it is. And, yeah, I see Primetime saying, I don't even care what the over-under is for Thursday. Bet the over. Yeah, Joe Burrow threw 5 touchdowns against the Las Vegas Raiders. And Cincinnati coming to town on Thursday, a huge divisional game, much like we talked about last week going into this week for the Denver game. The Ravens, if they lose to Cincinnati, would have 4 AFC losses. You can't have that through 10 weeks. So a huge win for the Ravens today and just a massive momentum builder for this Ravens team in multiple different ways. I mean, Lamar's a guy, he's just so cool, calm, and collected, right? It feels like for him, the game just slowed down for him and has slowed down every single year. And, we're now seeing him not panic. Not that he was a panicky quarterback in the first place. What I'm saying is as he's grown and as he's matured over the course of his career, the game all of a sudden for him, it just looks easy. Like Lamar's putting up video game numbers because for him, he is playing a video game. That is how good he is. He waits for his guys to break open. He doesn't force the ball into anywhere. It's very rare you see Lamar. I mean, look, Lamar has 2 picks on the season. Both of them were because his receivers put him in a bad spot with the ball that he threw. That wasn't on Lamar. He's a low mistake player. And when you're talking about the MVP conversation, this is a game where he just broke away from the MVP field. I see people talking about Justin Herbert or Josh Allen. I know Joe Burrow's in that conversation, but in my opinion, Cincinnati's record is too bad to have him be in that conversation. But Lamar is now, to me, MV3. Like, again, it would take a drastic drop-off from Lamar for him to lose that award. And obviously, Lamar, at the end of the day, like, I'm sure he thinks it's cool, but he doesn't care about that award. He wants Super Bowl MVP, not NFL regular season MVP. And, Michael, this is a big point. I'm glad you brought this up. No injuries on a short week. From what I saw, didn't look like the Ravens had any injuries, at least any ones of significance. So you have that going into a short week. Michael, this is a great point because, if a guy gets injured and it might be like a 1 week absence, or maybe he can play on Sunday, well, you don't have that extra prep time. And now all of a sudden you're kind of scrambling. Well, for the Ravens, they're going to go in hopefully about as healthy as he can be for this Cincinnati game on Thursday. And yeah, Spirit Bomb, I forgot Jared Goff. Thank you for bringing up Jared Goff. Yep. Jared Goff is definitely in that MVP conversation as well. But, man, I mean, you love to see this offense do what they do because teams just can't stop it. The offensive line, look, early in the game when there was that sack on Lamar after the turnover, when the Broncos only rushed 3, I was like, okay, all right, what's going on here? What's going on here? But I thought that they recovered decently well. Obviously, Derrick Henry gave a shout-out to the blockers and the blocking in his post-game press conference. I mean, look, this is ridiculous. Derrick Henry has 13 touchdowns this season. 13. We just finished week 9. We just finished the halfway point of the season. We're just over the halfway point in the season. And Derrick Henry has 13 touchdowns. He's now over 1,000 yards in this game. And you want to talk about some other crazy offensive stats before we get into defense? There are a couple of these from Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson on throws past the sticks versus the Broncos. This coming from PFF. 8 for 8, 195 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a perfect 158.3 passer rating. Jess Rebeck talking about how Lamar Jackson now has 275 plus passing yards for the 5th straight game. That's a Ravens record. And if you want to talk about the Denver defense and what they were doing before this game, Jeff Rebeck. Broncos came into this game allowing a league low 4.4 yards per play. Now through 3 quarters, the Ravens, they averaged 8.4 yards per play. But as we talked about, the end result here, Baltimore was 7.3 yards per play. And again, a lot of that 4th quarter was garbage time. So we don't really have to talk about all of that. But, man, this is a historic unit on offense. I'm not going to take this unit for granted. And there is a lot to like, especially when you look at some of these other stats here, where for the Ravens, 13.5 yards per pass. The Ravens were hitting on their intermediate to deep stuff today. Guys were making plays after the catch. I'm curious to see those after catch numbers. And Baltimore, 4 for 6 in the red zone today. They capitalized on their opportunities. They punched the ball in. And Denver, on the other hand, did not on their offensive side of the ball. So it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Coming up in the second part of the show, defense is going to be the topic of conversation. We'll talk about how the unit looked, and we'll sneak in some trade talk before getting into our big trade talk segment. Stay tuned. A lot to dive into on this post-game edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Game Time. Now, for basketball, the hype and the atmosphere of watching basketball is incredible. You got celebrity sightings, the sound from the court, and the feel of the crowd. For me, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy. They've been okay, I guess, this season, not wonderful. But I love when the Nuggets are in DC, going down, seeing them play, looking forward to doing that a lot of times. And look, Game Time now has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. And Game Time has tickets for all events, concerts, shows, and more, not just sports. Game Time Picks filters up the fluff so you only get incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So for the Ravens and Bengals game coming up on Thursday night, big game. Go on Game Time Picks, see the seats. You can get super deals or other tiers of deals as well. Plus, the app has a ton of great features such as Game Time Picks, all-in pricing, which you have to toggle that feature on. You got seat views, lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Down on the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDO on NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And the show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave. We see you. You know what gave me a bit of Ravens Fan Fuel this week? honestly, the moment when Zay Flowers scored that second touchdown, I mean, seriously, he breaks away and then Rashad Bateman comes back. Like, that got me hyped up. And so 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your jersey or game day, to-do list is always a mile long. That's why limited edition Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com. It's shipped nationwide. We return, Locked On Ravens, post-game edition of the show. Kevin Allstreicher still here with you on this Sunday, breaking down everything Ravens-Broncos. Ravens decimate the Denver Broncos in week number 9, improve their record to 6-3 ahead of a big Thursday night showdown with the Bengals. Appreciate everybody for being here. Again, we go live after every single Ravens game, and of course, these episodes are also available for playback. If you have to miss a live, you can watch it back, YouTube or audio form. Same show, both audio and video, so you're not missing out on any content. So be sure to tell a friend, tell a family member as well. You know, we're in the age of social media where you can promote shows and do this and that. Well, word of mouth is still such a big deal. So if you have a friend or a family member who wants Ravens coverage, daily Ravens content, we should have sent them our way over here on Locked On Ravens. Defensively is going to be a big conversation here as Baltimore, again, only allowed 10 points to this Denver offense. I know there are some positives we're going to get into because I thought it was a much better performance on a lot of guys, well, for a lot of different aspects, but you also have some areas where there's certainly still some concern, and I definitely see it in the chat here. And Laura, appreciate you tuning in. Definitely a nice win. And of course, yes, be sure to smash that like button. Appreciate you, Laura. And hey, Kieran, talking about second half shutout by the defense, big time win. When's the last time we saw a second half defensive shutout? I mean, it's probably hasn't even been that long comparatively, but feels like forever since we've seen the Ravens defense play this way. Bo Nix struggled in this game. The Ravens did not let him get early momentum, and part of this was because, man, Denver, they full sent it when they were going for it on fourth down. 1 for 5 in the game on fourth down plays. I mean, the only conversion they had was that Bo Nix jump touchdown on Marcus Williams, which, like, of course, like, out of everything that could have happened, out of any fourth down conversion that was, of course, it had to be a Bo Nix jump touchdown. And at that point, you're like, okay, really? Are we really doing this? But I thought for the most part, we'll talk about the pass rush. That's a separate conversation. Was not very impressed with them outside of, and yep, I see Ryan talking about Tavius Robinson. I know Trenton Simpson had a sack as well. But the defense overall, I thought, played well in terms of who they were playing. Like, they understood that Bo Nix wasn't having a great game, and they turned up some of the heat and the pressure, not just blitzing wise, but they turned up a lot of it when it came to also being able to just go after him and make him uncomfortable, right? Make him uncomfortable. For these rookie quarterbacks, second-year guys who haven't seen the Ravens defense before, it can be really tough. And so Denver averaged 4.7 yards per play, which isn't like bad or anything. It's not terrible. 4.7 yards per play is not bad at all. But what Baltimore is able to do is, even though Javonte Williams broke off some big runs, and Bo Nix, I thought, was the real guy in the run game. I mean, Roquan couldn't catch him on a couple of plays. Roquan concerns me. All right, if we just want to get that out of the way right now, and, you know, you can, if you're live here on the show, or if you're in the comments on YouTube, or if you want to send me a message, if you're listening in audio form on Twitter, 1 to 10, what's your concern level on Roquan Smith right now? You know, we're more than halfway into the season. It hasn't looked great for him for the majority of it. He's had a couple of good games here and there. I mean, you look at the actual box score stats here, and, you know, Roquan only had 3 tackles today. He only had 3 tackles, and it just looks like he's slower. Maybe he's playing through an injury. He definitely got up slow a couple of times. It's not like he's the biggest liability on the Baltimore defense right now, right? He's not the biggest liability, but compared to what we have been used to seeing from Roquan over the last couple of seasons in Baltimore, and obviously what he did in Chicago before coming over, it's not the same. And they need him to be up to speed. They need him to be the leader of that defense, which I know that he is from a vocal aspect, but, you know, he's not necessarily showing that as much on the field. And it's tough because he's not costing you games, but a lot of big plays, not all of them, but, you know, more than we're used to, a lot of them have been coming at the expense of Roquan. And Corey, maybe, first of all, Michael, he did bulk up, and whether that is, weight or muscle or whatever, he definitely did bulk up. But I want to bring up this comment from Corey here too. They're asking him to do too much and playing Trenton part-time. Trenton definitely needs to play more. And I know we talked about a comment earlier about that. Trenton needs to play more. I think that the Ravens, with their personnel packages, it doesn't free up Roquan to do as much as he used to do, but he still is not playing the way that we are used to seeing him play, right? So that, to me, is the big concern point for Roquan, where, look, we still have a decent chunk of the season for him to get right, but is he just playing through something? He definitely does need to slim down a little bit, it feels like. It just looks like he's playing a step slow out there. But then you have other guys kind of picking up the slack, right? Kyle Hamilton continues to ball out this season, 10 tackles, just being a menace on screen plays, not letting Denver get anything. But here are the other guys who I thought played really well in this game, all things considered. Tavius Robinson, I thought, was a beast in this game. He was a disruptor, 1,000%. I thought he did really, really well. I thought that Broderick Washington had his moments, and they needed him to have moments, with obviously Travis Jones not being 100%. I don't even think Travis really played. I don't even know if Travis played a snap in this game. Obviously, he was active, but I'm not sure if he played a snap. But then you also have other guys on the defensive line who were doing their thing a little bit, but Trenton was the other guy, right? Trenton is the other guy that I thought earned more playing time in this game. So moving forward, the big concern, because you can see that the Ravens in this game, they were credited for the 4 sacks, but the pass rush really was decently non-existent for the majority of this game. And so when you talk about areas the Ravens should add at, pass rush needs to be the number one priority. You see, I think Miami did lose, right? Correct? Miami did lose to Buffalo today, I'm pretty sure. Yes, Miami did lose to Buffalo. So I would think, honestly, if you're looking for interior pass rush help, Calais Campbell would be an option. I think that honestly is, for those who are listening to this or watching live, I'm going to do my bold prediction and my final trade deadline prediction. My final trade deadline prediction is they trade for Calais Campbell. Or Calais Campbell gets let go and he comes back. One way or the other, my thing is Calais Campbell will be in a Ravens uniform. That is my prediction. My lesser bold prediction, if that doesn't work, is Shadavian Clowney. One of those two guys comes. It looks like Zadarius Smith is going to Detroit in some way, shape, or form. I don't think that's official yet, but it feels like Zadarius is going to Detroit. And look, I don't think Cleveland would have traded him in division anyway. It seems kind of silly. I don't think that Cleveland would, especially because Zadarius is under contract next season. So I think Zadarius will probably end up in Detroit. So I think that it will be Clowney or Calais Campbell. I will say Campbell first is my bold prediction, and then Clowney after that. But you just saw Bo Nix had all day to throw back there today, and the Ravens were able to flush him out of the pocket some. They were able to use the blitz to get him out there a little bit, especially later in the game. But it just felt like these past 2 weeks really cemented the fact that these quarterbacks are just having all day. And you can't do that, especially because Jameis Winston and Bo Nix are not the quarterback you're going to be playing in the playoffs, right? Maybe Denver makes it as a wild card team. Wouldn't be shocked with the way their defense has played this season, obviously outside of what we saw today against Baltimore. But it's going to be guys like Mahomes and Allen and, other guys that are going to make you pay. Maybe Cincinnati can, go out there and make a wild card. I think Cincinnati's not making the playoffs, but you can't have quarterbacks sit back there all day to throw, especially because this Denver offense is not nearly as good as these offenses you're going to see in the playoffs. So to me, I feel like this Ravens team has avenues to improve at the trade deadline, but defensively, I thought it was a very good step in the right direction. Was it this dominant defensive performance? Well, 10 points will tell you that. Second half shutout will tell you that, right? A lot of the numbers behind it will tell you that. And I was very proud, I guess, of the way the defense bounced back after that atrocious game. And hey, the Ravens called an interception. And let's give a little round of applause for the Ravens catching an interception. Darius Washington, second play of the game, ball gets tipped off of little Jordan Humphrey's hands, and Ardarius comes down with that thing. So, hey, jugs machines for all. Looks like that all worked out. But, man, for this Ravens defense, you look at some of the numbers behind it, you would like to see 6-14 on third down for Denver isn't terrible. They locked up when it came to fourth down, though. And did they get a little lucky on some of those plays? Absolutely. They did, right? Bo Nix overthrew Troy Franklin on would have been a touchdown on fourth down. Javonte didn't extend on another fourth down. I was very shocked Denver didn't take points. I thought it would have been a very different game if they did, but hey, I'll take it. Like, whatever, I'll take it. So I think that the Ravens still have work to do defensively, right? That is not a secret to anybody, but I feel a lot better with them with this performance than I did last week, obviously letting Jameis Winston go out there and look like prime Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow himself. So coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into full trade talk. So have your names ready. We're going to be talking about those coming up in the final part of the show here. Stay tuned. Lots to get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you just got to lay the stats for that play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. We get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more of FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are back, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher. Ravens win 41-10. Very exciting Victory Sunday that'll head into Victory Monday for us coming up tomorrow. Trade deadline is on Tuesday, less than 2 days away. Actually, as we're recording, this is 4:45 p.m. Eastern time right now. So just under 48 hours away from the trade deadline. We will be live after any Ravens move that happens. And depending on if anything else happens, we might be live directly after the trade deadline, just breaking it all down and going across the league. So we bring you 5 days a week of Ravens coverage here. Be sure to like and subscribe in video form and follow along in audio form. Just hit 9,000 subscribers in video form. That is such a cool number. I'm super, super grateful to everybody in the video community as well as the audio community too. Grateful for everybody on the YouTube side of things. Once we hit 10,000, I'm wearing a full Dixie Cup outfit for a week on this show. It's the first thing I promised when I started this channel up back in 2021. And hey, we're less than 1,000 subs away. So really appreciate that. And in audio form, that community is growing at a rapid rate. Appreciate everybody who tunes in audio form as well. All right, let's do trade talk. I don't know about you, but for me, trade deadline is like my favorite time of the year outside of free agency and the draft. Like opportunities for teams to improve, opportunities to make their team better. And for the Ravens, we know that Eric DeCosta is always looking at avenues. So the Ravens got Deontay Johnson, all right? Wide receiver and honestly all offense should be off the board. They should be focusing solely on the defensive side of the ball. So let's just get one name. And actually Kieran kicked us off here with Jadeveon Clowney. But in the chat, if you're live with us, in the comments, if you're not on YouTube, or message me on Twitter, your name, if you're in audio form, give me one name that you would like to see the Ravens acquire before Tuesday's deadline. I think Clowney would be a great name. They're certainly missing some of his physicality up front. And I think, to me, his ability is unquestioned. And I think he's a better fit in Baltimore than he is in Carolina. So in my opinion, I mean, that to me would be a home run move. The guy that I would love to see, and James says it right here, Azeez Ojulari. I think this is the most realistic, I don't know how to say it, the most realistic name, I guess bigger name, right? To me, is the most realistic, bigger name that the Ravens could acquire. I see Max Crosby, and that could be something that for the Ravens, it could be big because Azeez is playing great football. I don't know how he did today. Let me look up his stats. Azeez Ojulari. Did he have a sack today? No sacks against the Commanders, but before that, he had 5 sacks in 3 games. He probably wouldn't cost a ton, maybe a 4th, maybe a 5th. Well, I guess they gave their 5th away in the Deontay trade. So maybe a 4th or a 5th. We'll see. But I think Azeez would be awesome. But realistically, I think it would be Clowney or Calais Campbell. And Cam Dom shouting it from the rooftops, Clowney and Campbell. If Eric DeCosta and the Ravens pulled off both of these deals, Eric DeCosta did Clowney and Calais Campbell, man, I am all on board for that. But it's no doubt that the Ravens need to improve their pass rush, right? We talked about that in the second part of the show. Secondary-wise, you can make an argument, but the Ravens, I think they're just going to roll with what they have. They're going to roll with Marcus Williams. At least I think they will. I said that last time, and it kind of hit the fan. So we're not going to guarantee that, obviously. But Maybe they go out there and Marshawn Lattimore's a guy. The Panthers beat the Saints. The Saints are probably in sell mode right now. Does Marshawn Lattimore make sense for the Ravens? Does a guy like Javon Holland in Miami after they lost make sense for the Ravens? One of those guys could be impact level players, but is there enough playing time to go around? I mean, Brandon Stevens has had a pretty up and down year this year. Another kind of decently tough game for him in some aspects. Had some moments in this game for sure. But, I think Brandon, if we're being honest, has probably lost himself a bit of money this season compared to what he did last year, which was just baller. Brandon Stevens was a baller last year. Certainly has taken some level of a step back, but it's not as bad as I think people are making it out to be. But the question comes down to, do you trust Brandon Stevens as the Ravens corner too, especially with Marlon's injury history now and him having to miss time in and out for these last couple of seasons? That's the big question there. I think the Ravens should prioritize pass rush over that. But again, maybe they could go out there and try for both. That could be what ends up happening. Extra Butter talking about Campbell and Ojulari. That is the chef's kiss, Extra Butter. I'm loving that. I am loving that right now. The Ravens also, I see Extra talking about Eddie Jackson and the bench. The Ravens inactives, interesting list. Eddie Jackson obviously got benched and was inactive, and look, rightfully so. That was one of the worst games I have ever seen in Ravens history last week against Cleveland. But you also have David Ojabo, who for the second week seems to be a healthy scratch. It looks like the David Ojabo experience might be over in Baltimore, which is pretty disappointing, especially with all the potential he has. But we can be honest about that. He hasn't given enough. Adisa Isaac was also out. They need something, because Adafe Owe, he's had moments, but it hasn't been like, oh, he's balling out this season. Kyle Van Noy was wrecking games early in the season, but he's kind of become a little bit quiet over the course of the year. Ooh, Kieran, give me this all day. Double dip in Miami, Campbell and Holland. I'm with it. Give me this. Give me all the guys. You know what? Ravens are bringing in Clowney. They're bringing in Campbell. They're bringing in Holland. They're bringing in Lattimore. Let's bring everybody to the Ravens, all right? We'll do the little Moreland recruiting pitch. # come to the Ravens. That is what it is. But here's the thing. And Andrew, I'm glad you said this. Defense is holding us back. I want to talk about this for a second. We know the Ravens offense is historic. The passing offense is historic. The rushing offense is historic. Getting ahead of myself. Passing offense, rushing offense, they're both historic. Rushing defense has been great this season, right? It's just the secondary and the pass defense. And what goes into the pass defense? Well, obviously it's members of your secondary, but you also have to rush the passer effectively. Because as we have said, and if you're an everydayer on Locked On Ravens, first of all, appreciate you for your consistent support, but also, you're probably tired of me saying this, you have to be able to marry the pass rush and the secondary together, because coverage sacks are a thing. And when the pass rush wins, you're able, as a secondary, to not cover as long. So if they can just get that pass defense right, they don't have to become a top 5 pass defense. They don't even have to become a top 10 pass defense. Guess what? They don't even have to become a top 15 pass defense. Just be average. If you are an average pass defense for this Ravens team, I don't see a way how they lose a Super Bowl. But they're not right now. And they have to get there. They have to. And so part of that is on the Ravens and getting somebody in here that can help at the trade deadline. And you also have to factor in the other guys on the roster is hopefully playing better. Dana asking, what's going on Xavier Howard? Why hasn't anyone called to pick him up? He just looked old last year, and I think injuries have taken a pretty big toll on him. I just don't think he's the same player he was. He's definitely not shut down anymore, and his stats and his numbers were already looking decently bad over the last couple of seasons. But yeah, Dennis, it is injuries with Xavier for sure, most definitely. And you know what, Yamil, I forgot about this. Actually, I was involved in this conversation. I remember when the Ravens took David Ojabo over George Pickens, because again, Yamil saying EDC picked Ojabo over Pickens. I remember when this conversation first happened, I loved Pickens as a player coming out of Georgia. Like, I thought it would have been perfect for Baltimore to pick him up. Obviously, what would he have done in the first couple of years of this Ravens offense? Who knows? But like for Ajabo, he just never got his footing. Like we saw the potential was tantalizing, but obviously Pickens is a star over there. And yeah, you know what? I think you got to give that one to the Steelers. They certainly won the Pickens versus Ajabo battle there. In Spirit Bomb, good point here. Refs definitely missed a couple of calls on Odafe Owe. Most definitely. Kind of a weird officiating game. I mean, look, the Ravens kind of had the Broncos committing all these penalties, and then late in the game, it just felt like the Ravens just got a whistle because the game was over, like on them. The game was like, okay, we're just going to throw all these flags on the Ravens now, kind of make it look a little even. The penalties, I think Denver had 9 penalties in this game? Was it 9? Yep, Denver had 9 penalties for 71 yards, Ravens 6 for 53. And Baltimore won this game in dominant fashion, holding the ball for 31-51 compared to Denver's 28-09. So, hey, you know what? Ravens moved to 6-3. They needed this win, and I'm glad they got it, because if we were sitting here talking about a 5-4 Ravens team with 4 AFC losses, would not have been fun. But you know what is fun? Ravens win, trade deadline on Tuesday, and we can talk about the Ravens heading into a huge Thursday night game against the Cincinnati Bengals coming up in just a couple of days now. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. On the way out, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form. We'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens, getting into full trade talk as well as Lamar Jackson and a lot more Baltimore Ravens football. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.